After being reborn, I decided not to cling to Ryan anymore. On his birthday, he put up a sign that said, "No dogs and Emily allowed." So I went to Hawaii, staying far away from him. He said the scent of me in his house made him sick. So I obediently moved out. He said that after graduation, he didn't even want to breathe the same air as me. So I left without hesitation and never returned. In the end, he said that my existence would cause misunderstandings for his beloved first love. I nodded in agreement. Not long after, I publicly announced my relationship with someone else. I deliberately made choices opposite to those in my previous life. Back then, I got what I wished for. I married Ryan, but his first love, Claire, jumped off a cliff and took her own life. He called me a murderer, tormented me, and abused me, until he finally let me die at sea. This time, I just want to live. Later, when I held my new boyfriend's hand, Ryan suddenly blocked my way. His eyes filled with shock. "Emily, if you come with me now, I'll forgive this joke of yours." I looked at the familiar sign at the entrance. "No dogs and Emily allowed." Tears welled up in my eyes. But they were tears of joy. Emily, that's my name. At this moment, I was being insulted, lumped together with a dog. Yet no one knew how happy I was. Because I had been reborn. I returned to the day of Ryan's birthday. Before we were engaged, to everyone, I was unworthy of him. Whether in family background or appearance. We were worlds apart. He was the heir to the prestigious Carter family in River City, while I was an orphan with no parents. Bound to him for over 20 years because of a childhood joke. Everyone sympathized with Ryan, even he resented me for it. That's why he put up that sign at the entrance. Dressed in my finest outfit, I was stopped at the door. "Emily, it's not that we won't let you in. This was Ryan's decision. Be smart. Don't make things difficult for us. It wouldn't look good for you either." One of Ryan's close friends stood at the doorway, relaying the message with a cold expression. Security guards stood on both sides, gripping electric batons. Such an extravagant display, just to deal with me. Everyone knew how much Ryan despised me. In my past life, I hadn't entered the party either. Like a stray dog, I waited outside from morning till night. Eventually, I collapsed from the cold with a high fever. When Ryan's parents heard about it, they scolded him and forced the engagement to proceed. On the day of our wedding, Claire jumped off a cliff. In Ryan's eyes, and in the eyes of his entire social circle, I was the murderer. For years, he took revenge on me, tormenting me, neglecting me, breaking me down piece by piece. I begged for a divorce countless times, but every request was refused. Ryan sneered and said, "I'll drag this out until you die." For 20 years, I endured being ignored, erased, and treated like I didn't exist. Until, finally, I lost my mind and threw myself into the sea. The cruelest part? In my final moments, I saw Claire return, alive and well. She had never died. She had faked her death. She had become a world-renowned designer. And her long-delayed romance with Ryan was now celebrated by the world. From beginning to end, I was the only fool. Now that I've been given another chance, I will live for myself. I will stay far away from Ryan. Under countless stunned gazes, I turned and walked away without hesitation. Back at the Carter estate, I stripped off my heavy, elaborate dress. Everyone knew I was Ryan's pathetic follower. Whenever it came to him, I would drop everything and arrange everything perfectly for him. Ryan often complained about how exhausting work was. So I planned a trip to Hawaii for him because he once said he missed the beaches and ocean there. But in my past life, he never accepted my offer. Instead, he went camping in the mountains with Claire. He ordered me to go along. And when a storm rolled in, he told me to fetch Claire's bracelet. I fell off a cliff and broke my leg. I spent 2 months in the hospital. That feeling, of falling into despair, of hitting rock bottom. I never want to experience it again. Staying away from Ryan is the first step. I quickly packed my suitcase, grabbed my documents, and headed downstairs. Just as I reached the bottom, Ryan stormed in, dressed in a formal suit. The moment he saw me, he let out a cold laugh, dodged past me, and knocked my suitcase to the ground. I frowned. "What are you doing, Emily? I should be the one asking you that." He sneered, his voice filled with irritation. "How old are you? Still playing the runaway act? What's next? Are you going to leave behind a note and threaten suicide again?" He was panting, his expression full of disgust. Are you that childish? Still trying to use suicide to manipulate me? I dusted off my now filthy suitcase and looked at him with unwavering eyes. Who told you I was planning to kill myself? I asked, enunciating each word. People like Ryan and Claire, with their cold, selfish hearts, got to live happily. Now that I had a second chance at life, why the hell would I throw it away? Ryan scoffed but didn't respond. His eyes were filled with nothing but disdain. Instead, it was Claire, who had followed closely behind him. Who spoke first? Emily, if you wanted to come to the party, you could have just talked to Ryan properly. You two grew up together. You're practically siblings. Why wouldn't he let you in? She sighed, tilting her head with faint concern. Suicide threats might work once. But twice? That's just like crying wolf. She was clearly hinting at something. Ryan's gaze grew even colder, his disgust toward me deepening. My mind spun as memories came flooding back. After Ryan started dating Claire in my past life, his attitude toward me changed completely. I had once been so angry that I left a message saying I was going to throw myself into the river. It had terrified Uncle Carter and Auntie Carter, and they had forced Ryan to break up with Claire. From that moment on, Ryan hated me. He ignored me, refused to talk to me, and let Claire and her group isolate and bully me while he turned a blind eye. I met his eyes head on and calmly explained, "You're overthinking it. I never planned on killing myself. I packed my things because I'm going to Hawaii." Ryan let out a mocking chuckle, as if I had just made up the most ridiculous excuse. Claire tugged at his sleeve gently. "Ryan, why don't we let Emily come with us? She looks so pitiful like this." Ryan frowned slightly, as if considering it. Just as he was about to give in, I rejected the offer first. "No need. I'm going to Hawaii." Ryan's handsome face twisted slightly, as if irritated that I had spoken first. "Did you hear that?" he scoffed. "She's going to Hawaii. Emily, don't make a scene, all right?" Claire sighed dramatically and stepped closer, taking my hand in hers. Her sharp nails dug painfully into my skin, out of sight from everyone else. The sharp sting made me instinctively push her away. Claire let out a gasp as she stumbled backward. Falling to the ground, she clutched her hand weakly, looking at me with wide, trembling eyes, as if she couldn't believe what I had just done. "Emily," her voice wavered, filled with hurt. Emily, are you looking to die?" Ryan snapped, his voice explosive with fury. In the next second, he shoved me with full force. My head slammed into the hard edge of the stairs, a sharp pain spreading through my skull, making my vision spin. Ryan's voice roared above me. "You just can't stop bullying people. Can you? You're nothing but an ungrateful leech. Just being around you makes the air in this house feel disgusting." I clenched my teeth through the pain and forced myself to speak. "I'll move out. You don't have to worry about that. You better keep your word." Ryan's face was filled with rage as he glared at me one last time before turning around and lifting Claire into his arms. Without another word, he walked away. I reached up and touched the back of my head, feeling the warm, sticky sensation of blood, and then, as if the pain had triggered something deep within me, a memory surfaced. Ryan and I hadn't always been this hostile. In fact, we used to be close. Very close. Because I had always known about our engagement. I had clung to him since childhood, convinced that we were destined to be together. When we were younger, Ryan had snuck off to an internet cafe to play video games behind his parents' backs. I had followed him, sticking to his side like always. That day, he got into an argument with another player, and the fight escalated. I had tried to step in and stop it but ended up getting accidentally injured. A small cut on my finger. But at that moment, Ryan had lost it. Like a wild beast, he had beaten the man to the ground, making him cry and beg for mercy. That was the Ryan I remembered. The one who had once been furious over a tiny scratch on my hand. But that same man, who had once been so protective of me, now hurt me without hesitation. All because of her. He told me I was looking for death. But it didn't matter anymore. Once Uncle Carter and Auntie Fang returned, my engagement to Ryan would be annulled. I turned to one of the maids nearby and forced a weak smile. "Can you take me to the hospital? I can pay you." The new young maid hesitated, looking like she wanted to help. But before she could take a step forward, an older servant yanked her back. Their hushed conversation still reached my ears. "Are you out of your mind? Don't you know Mr. Ryan hates Miss Emily the most? If he sees you helping her, you'll lose your job. The young maid paled. She cast me a quick, nervous glance before turning and running away. I shook my head with a bitter smile, dragging myself to the corner to pick up my cracked phone. Uncle Carter and Auntie Fang were rarely home, only staying for 3 or 4 days each month. Ryan was the only one who truly lived here. He had told me more than once that I wasn't part of the Carter family and that I should handle my own business. Because of that, no one in this house dared to approach me. Every time I came home, any leftovers would have already been thrown in the trash. The plates on the dining table were always empty, as if I didn't exist. But I had long since gotten used to it. I forced myself to go to the hospital. The doctor diagnosed me with a concussion and told me to stay for observation for 2 days. When I was discharged, I returned to the Carter estate to pack my things. The maids stood by with cold, indifferent expressions, watching as I struggled on my own. That afternoon, I moved all my belongings to a small apartment I had hurriedly rented. It was only temporary. Once I received my diploma, secured a job offer, and finalized the annulment of my engagement, I could finally leave all of this behind. On the 3rd day after moving out, Ryan called me. His voice was thick with intoxication. Where are you? Come to private room 812. I was in the middle of writing my resume, and the interruption annoyed me. Ryan, what do you need? There was silence on the other end. Even the background noise, the usual chatter and laughter of a party, seemed to quiet. I thought he had nothing to say, so I was about to hang up when he suddenly spoke again. Emily, where did you go? I kept typing, setting the phone aside. Without much thought, I replied, didn't you say living in the same house as me made you sick? So I moved out. Don't worry, I won't come back. His breathing grew heavier. Then he suddenly let out a cold laugh. Since when did you become so obedient? Weren't you the one who used to cling to me? Fine, since you're so well behaved now. How about this? Leave this city. Get out of my sight. I froze for a moment before his voice, sharp with mockery, cut through the silence. No response? What? No more games to play? Aren't you tired of your little tricks? Apologize to Claire, and I'll allow you to crawl back. I exhaled slowly and said calmly, fine, Ryan, I'll leave. Without waiting for his response, I ended the call. I received my diploma, and several of my job applications had received responses. The best offer was from a top company in the neighboring city. Without hesitation, I scheduled an interview. Having a career was something I had longed for in my past life. I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. But just as I was about to board the train, my phone rang. It was from the company. I had passed the interview. Sitting on the high-speed train, I eagerly browsed rental listings, searching for an apartment in my new city. The thought of finally putting distance between myself and Ryan filled me with an indescribable sense of relief. But just as I stepped off the train, my phone rang again. Ryan. The moment I answered, his cold, sharp voice cut through the line. Emily, where are you? My good mood vanished instantly, as if doused with ice water. What do you want? I asked, my tone indifferent. His voice was even colder. My parents are back. They told you to come home for dinner. By the time I arrived at the Carter estate, it was already evening. 4 people sat around the dining table. Uncle Carter, Auntie Fang, Ryan, and Claire. The atmosphere was tense, and judging by their expressions, something must have happened before I arrived. Without hesitation, I walked in as if nothing was wrong. Ryan glanced at me, his gaze lingering on my face for a moment before he abruptly put down his chopsticks and stood up. I'm done. I've lost my appetite, he said coldly before heading upstairs. Claire immediately followed him. I took my usual seat beside Uncle Carter and Auntie Fang. The two looked embarrassed, scrambling to make excuses for Ryan's behavior. But I just studied them carefully. The 2 people who had always treated me like their own daughter. In my past life, when they found out Ryan had imprisoned me, they had tried to help. But by then, Ryan had full control over the Carter family, and they were powerless. I never blamed them. The only person I blamed was myself for being so stupid. I took a deep breath and spoke softly. Uncle Carter, Auntie Fang, I've thought about this for a long time. Ryan and I were not a good match. He doesn't love me, and I don't love him either. Instead of forcing ourselves into a miserable marriage, why not give each other freedom? Let's annul the engagement. Auntie Fang's expression froze, her eyes shimmering with tears. Does it really have to come to this? I nodded firmly, the moment I said those words. The burden that had been weighing on me since my rebirth finally lifted. Before leaving, I went to my room to retrieve a few things I had left behind. But as I stepped out, Claire blocked my way. Emily, can you give Ryan back to me? She whispered. Her eyes red-rimmed with sorrow. I'm carrying his child. The baby needs a father. I frowned, instinctively taking a step back. Claire's lips curled into a strange smile. Then, suddenly, she grabbed my wrist and threw herself backward. Emily, no, please don't push me. My baby, she screamed. She tumbled down the stairs. A pool of blood quickly spread between her legs. The study door burst open. Ryan rushed out, his face twisted in rage at the sight before him. Without hesitation, he raised his hand and slapped me across the face. Emily, you're disgusting, he roared. I used to think people exaggerated when they said you bullied others. But now I see it with my own eyes. What excuse do you have this time? If it weren't for you, Claire and I would have never been separated. Why do you keep getting in our way? Uncle Carter and Auntie Fang emerged from their rooms. The moment Claire saw them, she clutched her stomach and started wailing even louder. Ryan turned to his parents, his face full of bitter resentment. Look, this is the woman you chose to be my wife. A sharp pain pulsed through my skull. My ears rang, and for a brief moment, my vision blurred. Then, before I could think twice, I raised my hand and slapped Ryan. Twice. Don't worry, Ryan, I said coldly. After today, I'm not your fiancé anymore. Ryan stood there, stunned, as if he couldn't believe what had just happened. I rubbed my stinging palm, then turned to Uncle Carter and Auntie Fang, whose expressions were unreadable. I gave them a small nod. Uncle, Auntie, I have something to take care of. I'll be leaving now. Without waiting for their response, I walked straight out the door. The moment I stepped outside, my legs gave out, and I collapsed onto the pavement. Ryan had used his full strength when he hit me. My cheek was burning with numb pain. I should have slapped him a few more times while I had the chance. Ryan had always been like this. No matter what happened, he never took my side. He only knew how to blame me. Claire, on the other hand, loved playing the victim, using her little tricks to twist every situation in her favor. Back in high school, I had suffered because of her too. One time, Claire had been locked inside a bathroom stall, crying for help. I had been the one to rescue her. But the moment she saw Ryan, she threw herself into his arms and claimed that I had been the one who locked her in. I had no way to defend myself, because Ryan would never believe me. Eventually, I stopped explaining altogether, but the more I stayed silent, the more false accusations piled up. Do you need me to take you to the hospital? A deep voice interrupted my thoughts. I squinted up at the stranger standing beside me. He was dressed entirely in black. A black hoodie, black pants, black cap, and even a black face mask. This kind of outfit, he was either a celebrity or a creep. I was about to shake my head. But before I could, my body gave out, and I collapsed again. When I woke up, the first thing I saw was a familiar white ceiling. The sharp scent of disinfectant filled my nose. A hospital. Someone was sitting by the bed, their head resting on their arms. A mess of golden curls peeked out from underneath a black hood. I stared at the golden curls, unable to resist the urge to reach out and touch them. The texture was perfect, soft and fluffy. The man jolted awake the second my fingers brushed against his hair. And then, our eyes met. The man's face suddenly turned red. He hurriedly pulled his mask back up, as if trying to hide. But even with just one glance, I recognized his well-known face. He was the center of a once popular boy band in the entertainment industry. I was about to say something when my phone suddenly rang. It was Ryan again. Just my luck. Suppressing my disgust, I picked up the call. Ryan's voice was hoarse, laced with exhaustion and sorrow. Emily, Claire lost the baby. My child is gone. It was my first child. How could you be so cruel? He sounded devastated on the other end, but I remained indifferent. Ryan, I said evenly, you do realize you could have just asked your parents to annul our engagement, right? It wouldn't have been hard. Our so-called marriage was nothing more than a verbal agreement. Just one word, and it would have been over. So why didn't you do it? Was it because you wanted to have your cake and eat it too? Because you wanted to keep the person at home while chasing after the one outside? And when the one at home didn't run to your plate on her own, you decided to curse at the plate instead? I let out a short laugh, my voice turning sharper. Maybe it's my fault. I was your pathetic doormat for over a decade. So now you don't want to let me go. My tone grew even colder. And Ryan? You really are an idiot. I ended the call without waiting for his response, my chest rising and falling with irritation. The young man beside me hesitated before speaking. Try not to get too worked up, he said in a soft voice. The doctor said you have facial injuries. If you've been subjected to violence, I can introduce you to a lawyer. I turned to look at him. Despite his all-black outfit and mask, his large, puppy-like eyes gave him an oddly gentle appearance. A small smile tugged at my lips. I lowered my gaze. Actually, there's something you could help me with. Ryan had always said my existence was an obstacle to his happily ever after with Claire. Fine. That day, I posted a picture of myself holding hands with someone. A well-defined, fair-skinned hand with long fingers intertwined with mine, forming the shape of a heart. The caption was short and blunt. Officially taken. As soon as I posted it, my comment section exploded. What's going on? This doesn't seem like our Emily. Emily, what are you doing? Delete this immediately. Ryan's group of so-called friends all came swarming in, trying to talk me out of it. I watched the chaos unfold with satisfaction, then set my phone down. Feeling completely at ease, the man beside me finally spoke. A little embarrassed. You recognize me, don't you? I used to be in a boy band. My name is Sean. He scratched his head awkwardly. But the group disbanded a while ago. And I wasn't even the center anymore. Just from the short time we'd spent together, I could already get a sense of his personality. He had wrapped himself up tightly in all black. Yet underneath it, he was soft-hearted. He could be a celebrity, a weirdo, or just someone with social anxiety. I smiled at him. Thanks for helping me, twice. If you don't mind, let me treat you to a meal. Sean hesitated. I added, if you're busy now, we can schedule another time. We ended up setting a dinner date for the day after tomorrow. The last day I'd be in River City. Over the next few days, I had all my belongings shipped to Ocean City, leaving only 2 small suitcases to bring with me. Ever since I posted that picture, Ryan had been calling like a madman. I blocked his number without hesitation, but he kept switching to different ones to reach me. I even started considering changing my number altogether. One day, I accidentally answered a call, not realizing it was him. The moment I picked up, Ryan's furious voice erupted through the speaker. Emily, what the fuck do you think you're doing? Are you cheating on me? I rolled my eyes. Emily, how the hell did I never realize you were such a piece of work? He spat, his rage boiling over. I clenched my jaw, forcing down my irritation. Ever since I had regained my clarity, ever since I had completely let go of Ryan, I realized something. He had no redeeming qualities. Not even one. And on top of everything, he was incredibly stupid. I rarely spoke so harshly. But this time, I didn't hold back. Ryan, you honestly disgust me. I let out a cold laugh. Oh, I see how it is. You and Claire can sleep together and create a whole damn mess. But the second I post a picture, your friends rush to defend your honor, and you start cussing me out? What am I to you? Ryan? A pet? Or did the Carter family buy me to be your property? I sneered, my patience completely gone. Maybe you should ask your parents. Because Ryan? Our engagement was already annulled. I'm single. I have nothing to do with you anymore. Ryan, whether you and Claire love each other or hate each other, it has nothing to do with me. Ryan sounded completely dumbfounded. What did you just say? Annul the engagement? I don't agree. His voice was so agitated, so firm, that I was momentarily stunned on my end of the call. Then I quickly snapped out of it and responded without hesitation. Who cares whether you agree or not? We never held an engagement party. You never publicly acknowledged me as your fiancé. On top of that, you've been parading around with Claire like you two are an official couple. Everyone already assumes you belong together. So tell me, Ryan, does your opinion even matter at this point? After that day, Uncle Carter and Auntie Fang called me several times, asking if I wanted to come back. I refused without hesitation. I had barely managed to escape that place. Why would I ever go back? On the day of my dinner with Sean, he showed up dressed in full disguise again. I understood why. His face was too recognizable. To avoid unwanted attention, I had reserved a private room in advance. But unfortunately, fate had other plans. Just as we were about to enter, I ran into him. Ryan. The moment he saw me, he stormed over and grabbed my wrist. Emily, you really betrayed me, he accused, his voice shaking with rage. I thought you were just joking. I never thought you'd actually go out with another man. His eyes flickered to Sean. Who the hell is he? I rolled my eyes. Ryan, do you think you're starring in some over-the-top CEO drama? Annoyed, I reached out and pinched his arm. Hard. The pain made him loosen his grip just enough for me to yank my hand away. I quickly stepped back, shielding Sean behind me. Ryan was unpredictable. He had a bad habit of throwing tantrums when things didn't go his way. The last time, he had smashed my suitcase just because he was in a bad mood. His expression darkened with hurt. Emily, you're protecting him? I let out a sigh. Ryan, who else am I supposed to protect? You? The ex who won't stop harassing me. I waved him off. Get lost. You're annoying. Do you have nothing better to do than throw a fit every 3 days? Our engagement is over. I have nothing to do with you anymore. Ryan clenched his jaw, seething. Emily, I'm not letting you go. You killed my child. You owe me another one. His words were so absurd that I actually froze for a second. Wondering if I had misheard him, I stared at him blankly. Ryan, if your brain is malfunctioning, please go see a doctor. I scoffed. Your family has an entire mansion filled with surveillance cameras. Are they just decorations? Claire fell down the stairs by herself. I'm not taking the blame for something I didn't do. Then, with a smirk, I glanced at him meaningfully. Ryan, since we've known each other for so many years, let me give you some advice. Look into the woman you sleep next to. In my past life, Claire had faked her death for 30 years before dramatically returning to the country. While abroad, she had married an 84-year-old billionaire. Not long after, the old man passed away, and Claire turned around and seduced his son. The only reason she eventually came back was because she had slept around too much overseas and had been exposed by too many wives. She had nowhere left to go. A woman as ambitious as Claire? There was no way she would risk her so-called future just to frame me. If she was pregnant, then I had every reason to doubt whether the baby was even Ryan's. Ryan's face twisted as he processed my words. But before he could respond, I scoffed and turned away. I had no more time for this nonsense. Just as I was about to leave, Ryan suddenly lunged forward, blocking my way. His eyes were wide and desperate, brimming with unshed tears. Emily, he pleaded, his voice shaking. If you come with me now, I'll forgive you. I'll pretend this whole thing was just a joke. I stared at him in utter disbelief. Ryan, are you okay? Have you lost your mind? Without waiting for his response, I brushed past him and left with Sean. This place has bad energy, I muttered. First thing I see when I walk in is someone I hate. Let's go somewhere else. Sean nodded obediently and followed me. Later that night, a friend sent me a link. Their message was cryptic, telling me to watch it. Curious, I clicked on it. It was a live stream. Claire was in the hospital, crying, wailing. Claire directly accused me of causing her miscarriage. Playing the weak, helpless victim was her specialty. Paired with a hospital backdrop, a medical diagnosis, and a well-crafted sob story, it was ridiculously easy for people to believe her. She manipulated online users into attacking me, flooding my social media with hateful messages. People added me on WeChat just to harass me. My phone rang non-stop with calls from strangers. Overnight, my social media accounts became a battlefield. Every time I opened my phone, I was bombarded with vulgar insults. Even old classmates, people I barely knew, jumped in, trying to ride the wave of attention. I was so furious that I laughed. Without hesitation, I reported everything to the police. Then, I called Ryan. Hand over the surveillance footage, I demanded. But no matter how carefully I had calculated, I never expected Ryan to be this shameless. Emily, if you want to prove your innocence, that's fine, he said smoothly. The footage is at home. All you have to do is come back. As long as you return to me, I'll give you the footage. Then, as if that weren't disgusting enough, he added, I see Claire for who she really is now. I won't have anything to do with her anymore. Emily, from now on, I belong to you. I nearly threw up. I had heard enough. I recorded everything, then hung up immediately. This time, I went live, publicly. I refuted Claire's accusations and addressed the false allegations against me. For those who took the opportunity to slander me, I filed lawsuits without hesitation. Ryan's words were more than enough evidence that Claire wasn't some innocent victim. In fact, she wasn't a victim at all. Soon, netizens who actually had a brain started piecing things together. Meanwhile, the rest of the internet was purely entertained by the drama and began demanding Ryan release the surveillance footage. Under the immense pressure of public opinion, Uncle Carter and Auntie Fang forced Ryan to hand over the footage. And just like that, the truth came out. The miscarriage? Fake. Claire had been preparing to debut as a celebrity and had even signed a contract. But now, with this scandal, she lost everything. Because I had been falsely accused, I applied for continuous media coverage. Fortunately, my new company was incredibly supportive. They even recommended that I have the legal affairs department handle my case. Once I started my new job, I changed my number and deleted every single contact related to Ryan. Half a year later, I traveled to River City for a business trip with my boss. I originally planned to visit Uncle Carter and Auntie Fang, but my schedule was too tight. Then, completely by chance, I ran into one of Ryan's old friends. I barely remembered the guy, but he immediately recognized me and greeted me enthusiastically. "Hey, have you talked to Ryan at all lately?" I shook my head. His eyes lit up, as if he had been dying to spill some juicy gossip. "Well, after that whole incident, he ended up in massive debt. Millions," he said, clearly enjoying the drama. Claire ran to Shane for help. He actually covered the debt for her. But guess what? She still couldn't keep herself in check. So Ryan had someone investigate her again. He grinned and leaned in. And this time, they actually found something. I raised an eyebrow. All this time, we thought Ryan and Claire were some tragic, star-crossed lovers, like you were the only thing standing in their way. But turns out, Claire was never loyal to him in the first place. She's been messing around with several of Ryan's closest friends. 5 of them. I blinked. What? He laughed. Yup, 5 guys. 5 cheated on boyfriends. And that baby she lost? Yeah, it wasn't Ryan's. I nearly choked. He continued, "Dude, this is the hottest gossip in River City. Claire's completely infamous now. Everyone says she went crazy trying to marry into wealth." I folded my arms, unimpressed. "And Ryan?" The guy smirked. "Ryan lost it. He sued her and demanded his money back. Claire now owes over 10 million. She's desperately looking for an old rich guy to fund her." I let out a short laugh. "And Ryan? He's in terrible shape. Got into a huge fight with all his old friends. Massive falling out. Everyone lost in the end. Even the Carter family isn't doing too well anymore." I hadn't expected things to be this messy. But honestly, Ryan deserved all of it. On the day I left River City, Ryan was waiting for me outside my hotel. He was desperate to see me, begging. But my boss and I had arranged for VIP airport transport. We avoided him entirely and caught our flight with no issues. When I finally arrived home, I was immediately hit with the warm smell of food. The moment I stepped inside, a man poked his head out from the kitchen, wearing a floral apron. "You're back." Sean peeked out from the kitchen, a warm smile on his face. "I already ran a bath for you. Go freshen up, and dinner will be ready by the time you're done." Happiness. This was what it looked like. I spread my arms wide and hugged Sean tightly. "Why are you home so early today? No schedules?" He lowered his voice. "My manager wants me to transition into acting. So they sent me some movie scripts. Told me to focus on working out for now and stay out of the public eye for a while." My eyes lit up. I leaned in and playfully bit his shoulder. "So that means you'll be free for a while?" I wrapped my arms around his neck, grinning. "Carry me inside." Now, Sean and I hadn't planned on going public too soon. He had thought about leaving the entertainment industry before, but his company had begged him to stay, eventually locking him into another 3-year contract. Luckily, his transition into acting was a success, and now he only took on film projects. His rising fame made it increasingly difficult for us to go out together. Every date had to be planned in secret, usually late at night. Eventually, he had enough. One day, he pulled out a ring he designed himself and proposed on the spot. I said yes. Just as I was about to say something else, A familiar voice called my name. Emily. I turned my head instinctively. The moment I saw who it was, my face darkened. Ryan. He stepped forward from the shadows. His gaze locked onto me. His eyes red-rimmed with emotion. I frowned. Who gave you my address? Ryan's voice was soft, almost pleading. I had someone look into it. Emily, don't be afraid. I just want to talk. I felt Sean's hand tighten around mine. I patted his arm lightly, signaling him to go inside. Sean hesitated, glancing between me and Ryan. Reluctantly, he walked away, but not before throwing Ryan a cold, warning glare. The sight almost made me laugh. Ryan sniffled, his voice trembling. Was he crying? Emily, are you doing okay? My expression turned completely cold. To be honest, I said flatly, if you hadn't shown up, tonight would have been perfect. Ryan stared at me with that strange look in his eyes again, as if he were desperately searching for something inside me. A chill ran down my spine. What do you want, Ryan? He shook his head. My parents miss you. They talk about you all the time. I heard from an old friend that they saw you recently, so I had someone look into it. I just wanted to see you, to see if you're doing okay. I didn't let my guard down. Lately, there had been way too many news stories about obsessive ex-boyfriends murdering their ex-girlfriends. Well, you've seen me now, I said indifferently. I'm doing great. Tell your parents to take care of themselves. I turned and walked away without hesitation. Up ahead, I spotted Sean standing under a tree, looking bored as he scrolled through his phone. I quickened my pace and ran to him. Did I take too long? I asked, linking my arm with his. Let's go. Ryan's perspective alternate timeline. When I woke up, I realized I had been reborn. I was back to when I was 26. Excitement surged through me. I ran out of my room, expecting to see the familiar sight of my house. But the villa was gone. Emily's presence, gone. There was no trace of her anywhere. The house was empty. Panic gripped me. Where was she? I searched frantically, but no matter where I looked, I couldn't find her. Finally, I turned to my parents. Where's Emily? Where did she go? My father's hair was grayer than I remembered. My mother looked even older than she had in my past life. She glanced at me emotionlessly. Why are you looking for her? She asked coldly. Didn't you drive her away? Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. She turned away. Stop thinking about Emily. You were the one who wronged her. She will never forgive you. The joy I had felt just moments ago shattered into nothingness. It felt like someone had taken a shovel to my chest, digging out every last piece of my heart until all that was left was an empty void. A suffocating chill crept through my bones. Desperately, I pressed for answers. And that's when my parents told me everything. From the very beginning, even before my birthday, Emily had already changed. I guessed that maybe she had been reborn too. At that moment, a surge of energy rushed through me. Emily had also come back to life. Maybe, just maybe, she would understand me now. I began searching for any trace of her. But I had hurt her too deeply. No matter how hard I looked, I couldn't find a single piece of information about her. It was as if she had vanished from the world. Luck was not on my side. 6 months later, I ran into an old friend by chance. I was no longer the high and mighty Ryan Carter. My family was no longer what it used to be. Still, I greeted my former friend, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy. That's when he mentioned it. He had seen Emily, and not just anywhere. She was in the neighboring city. I composed myself, dressed neatly, and went to find her. But when I arrived, I saw her, hand in hand with another man, casually strolling along, looking as if she belonged exactly there. At that moment, I knew I never stood a chance. She had moved on. She already had someone new by her side. A wave of unwillingness crashed over me. If this was how things were meant to be, then why did fate bring me back at all? I called out her name. She turned and walked toward me. Her expression was not friendly. I asked, "Are you doing well?" She looked me in the eye and said, "I'm doing great." That was all. At least she was alive.